This 11-story hotel is unlike anything Melbourne has ever seen. With an amazing rooftop bar and gathering space, incredible conference facilities, and of course, amazing guest rooms and suites like this one. So if you have friends and family coming to town for a visit, or want to go out and enjoy downtown Melbourne's great restaurants, bars, and shopping for a night or two, Hotel Melby is the place to be. Hello and welcome back to the 411 on the 321. Tales, tenets, and tips from Space Coast business leaders, brought to you by the Melbourne Regional Chamber. I'm your host, Mel Thomas, and I'm joining you as usual from the gorgeous Hotel Melby, downtown Melbourne. With me this morning is a very special guest, Mr. Mike Ballard, who is the president of TechRev. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mel.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. So we're going to be right back with Mike after a few words from our champion sponsor, Hedrick Brothers Construction.
Since 1979, Hedrick Brothers Construction has been delivering quality construction for the commercial and luxury residential markets of South Florida. In 2020, a team of 2 expanded into the Space Coast region and opened an office here in Melbourne. 3 years later, the team's grown to over a dozen professionals, working on large, local projects and investing in our community. The sky's the limit for the Hedrick team. Get to know them. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back. So Mike, for anyone that's not familiar, can you tell us what is TechRev? What do you do?
Absolutely. So TechRev, we've been around for coming up on 10 years now. So we're a government contractor. So we work a lot with the federal government, the Department of Defense, some other agencies, and basically we help meet the government requirements that they have for defending the nation. So whether that's developing custom software, doing systems engineering, just maintaining their current systems, we do a little bit of everything.
Nice. And 10 years, did you start here in Brevard 10 years ago?
Yes, I did.
Nice. Okay,
So.
Lovely. Did it start as like a one-man show? Tell me how the whole thing got started.
Sure. So depending on how far you want to go back.
All the way.
All the way.
Yeah, we're here to get to know you.
So I started out active duty Air Force, which is what brought me here to Patrick Air Force Base at the time. I know it's now Space Force Base. So that's an interesting change we're all seeing, right?
Yeah.
But really, I did that for about 6 years. I went through a couple, years where I was a government civilian. I was a contractor working for some other companies at the time. And then, a couple events eventually led me to start off my own thing. Initially, it started out as very part-time while I had a full-time job at another local defense contractor. And then, eventually I slowly weaned myself off of that and went full-time consulting as myself. So
Nice.
I kind of started in, my own house, traveling to the customer sites as necessary. And then eventually I had to make a decision to either start turning away business because I was getting more than I could do by myself, or start hiring people.
Okay.
And obviously I chose to start hiring people.
Yeah. So the bug struck you. You're like, I can do this. I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm striking out on my own.
Well, I never meant to start a company.
Okay.
I'll clarify that. There was some in the government space what's called there was contract action. So there was a possible furlough coming up, where it's not that they're firing you or laying you off. It's just that there's issues with the funding in the contract. So there may be some time where there's no active work. So when I saw that writing on the wall, I started the consulting stuff, just to make sure we still had money flowing in at the time, and we could still eat.
Yeah.
So
Well, necessity, right? Necessity is the mother. Yeah.
It is.
Okay. So how have you grown in that 10 years, and what have the past 3 years looked like for you?
So how we've grown in the 10 years, we obviously started with just myself. Initially, the first couple of years were, not looking to grow, but we did. We quickly grew to about 12 people.
Nice.
And then at a couple more surges, we got up towards of about 30.
Wow.
And then over the last, I'll say 2 years or so, between COVID and a couple other contractual issues we've had, we have shrunk a little bit. So we're down to about 10 people right now.
Okay.
But we do have quite a bit in our pipeline. And we are excited. I think we're going to start growing again.
Well, excited to hear that you're still viable. COVID didn't get you. Like, still going, still got things in the pipeline. You're a fighter. I love it. So what's next? You told me about your history in the past. So what's next?
What's next? Obviously, the market
Yeah.
continues to change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I probably just did like 5 minutes ago.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
And I missed it
Okay.
because I'm talking to you.
Sorry. Yeah.
But no, one of the big things that's changing in the defense contracting space is there's a lot of new cybersecurity regulations coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everyone's heard about a lot of the cyber breaches that have happened over the last couple years, and they continue to increase, especially with all the political things going on, overseas. And so one of the things the Defense Department has done is they are issuing new cybersecurity maturity model certifications, or CMMC.
I've heard a lot about CMMC.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so very briefly, basically, the government's coming out and saying you've had a requirement since actually 2017 to be compliant with these security regulations. However, they're finding most companies haven't been fully compliant, which is what's leading to these breaches. And so now they're in the process of coming out with a rule that says you have to be compliant, and we're no longer going to trust you to independently certify that you're compliant. We're going to require a third-party auditor to come in and certify that you're compliant in order to have a contract with initially the Defense Department.
Right.
But there's already a lot of movement. It looks like most federal agencies.
I was going to say, are
moving
there
that way.
future implications for other departments as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we're already seeing, a lot of the other federal agencies starting to follow up, and whether they call it CMMC or something else, it's going to be all based off very similar, if not the exact same security standards, which
Okay.
is published by NIST. So,
And what is NIST?
NIST is the National Institute for Standards and Technology.
Nice.
Specifically, the regulation we're talking about is NIST 800-171.
Okay, Mike, it's like talking to a computer, man. You know everything. I love this. So when we were talking before we got started, you mentioned another acronym, DIBSEC. Could you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the market continues to change. And one of the things that I think I'm seeing, and I could be proven wrong, but with the upcoming CMMC requirements, that is having a significant cost on specifically small businesses. So as we were, reassessing our NIST compliance for CMMC, we looked at it and said, this is very expensive and time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately for us, we do this, every day. So we harden, government computers and systems. So we're very familiar with cybersecurity requirements. And it was still hard for us. So,
And you're the experts.
yes.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity is not easy.
Right.
A lot of it is, just, standard maintenance, like a car. If it runs forever, it'll go and then it'll just break.
Yeah.
Because if you never have an oil change or something like that, most issues actually come from lack of standard, what they call cyber hygiene. Not patching your system, or something very simple, not having multi-factor authentication, not doing training so your people know what to look for. Phishing is a big deal right now.
Right.
So knowing this, we wanted to find a way to see if we could help small businesses comply with CMMC and continue the ability to support the Defense Department without the full-on burden of the cost and everything we've had to go through for CMMC.
Okay.
And so that we came up with DIBSEC.
Okay.
So DIB is a common acronym in our industry. It stands for the Defense Industrial Base.
Okay.
And so we paired that with security and came up with the acronym DIBSEC.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And basically what we're trying to do is allow anywhere from an independent consultant to kind of come under our cybersecurity umbrella. So we're on board them as a 1099, so they maintain their independence. But for a very small subscription fee, everything's a subscription nowadays, right?
Sure.
Is will allow them not only to work on our projects, but any independent projects they have, so they fully adhere to all their requirements and standards and can continue their independent consulting. And then for other smaller businesses, the 2-person business all the way up to the 20 plus, upwards of 100-person business that don't have the full IT and security staff, we will actually spin up their own environment and maintain and manage as much of the security as possible ourselves, providing them standard templates and helping them walk them through the process.
Nice.
So those companies will still require an independent audit, but we will hopefully remove a significant amount of the cost and the timeline to get compliant.
Breaking the barriers, right?
Yes.
Which seems to be the issue. Genius. I love it. So that's actually a really good segue. You started your own small business, and in general terms, I wonder what's some advice you could give for someone right now that's watching or listening that's considering starting their own small business?
So I've been asked this question a few times,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if my advice is what everyone gives.
Well, let's hear it. I'll let you know.
But what I tell potential founders is really make sure that you want to start your own business.
Okay.
It's a lot more work, a lot more long nights, and there's a weight about you whenever you have employees, because unlike, I'll say, larger businesses or things like that, your employees aren't a number.
Yep.
You know them. You know them by name. You know them, their wives or their husbands. You know if they have children. I don't know how many houses, I should probably do this, how many houses that my employees have bought or how many children that they've had born while working with me. And those are the things that I'll say weigh on you.
Sure.
So really there's extra, I'll say, weight that's there, and there's a lot of work. And so I'd say be careful what you ask for, because while like everyone sees there are highs, there's also a lot of lows that correspond with that. So.
And it sounds like a lot of sleepless nights.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's sound advice. Yeah.
So.
Good job. Okay. So speaking of employees, not all of your employees are local here, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Right now, we've had ebbs and flows, as we've grown and whatever. It's always been almost always been most of our employees are local. Initially, we started remote, and actually for a period of time, more employees were remote than not. But we are a fully remote company right now.
Yeah.
However, I think the vast majority of those are right here in Brevard County.
Okay, great. So how do you build your company culture when your employees are remote? How do you use technology to do that?
So fortunately, when we started, we actually had about a 3,000 square foot office space right here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so we were very intentional about building our culture, being, I always say, very family-like, which means we had a lot of fun. We worked hard, but like I said, everyone not only knew each other, but it was just a fun environment.
Sure.
So when COVID happened, it was actually fairly easy for us to switch because we already had all the technology in place where we could work remote. It was just a secondary option. And so we just switched our policies. Everyone primarily worked remote, and then we, as we were able to reopen the office based off of the state guidance, which actually in Florida we were able to do it a lot quicker than the rest of the nation. But we didn't force people to come back. We just provided them the option. We found out we were at about 20% utilization. And so after some, talking to the employees, looking at the numbers, we just decided to let the lease expire, and we maintained a fully remote workforce.
Okay.
So we purposely, make sure we do local happy hours every month. Still try to get that. We most of our meetings are, video based. Probably half the chats that go back and forth are probably not work related. But it's, you still try to maintain that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it still sounds like family though.
We absolutely try.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a lot of fun. So a lot of people might not know this about you, but you also have a blog, Hello World, correct?
Yes. I don't maintain it as well as I should. So all the marketers out there, I'm sorry. Yeah. So The Hello World was one of the interesting ones. It was, one of my first attempts at trying to do that. And I think it was really just a introduction to who we are as TechRev. And I think a lot of it discusses, the family aspect and how we try to be a little bit different than the rest of corporate America.
Yeah. When did you start the blog? Pre-COVID?
It was definitely pre-COVID.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I'm wondering how your blog has evolved since COVID as well.
It hasn't.
Okay. That's okay. I haven't either.
Yes.
It's all good. So I wonder if you could share maybe an example. You have a unique business approach. You have a unique business in general, but you have a unique business approach, your unique company culture, you listen to your employees, you still have fun, you're a family. Can you give us an example of how that produces results?
Sure. So one of the things, and a lot of the management books say to do this, whether it's actually done or not, and the efficiency, I don't know.
Okay.
But more often than not, what I focus on is enabling the employees. And basically, my job is to remove their obstacles. It's not to, I'll say, manage them or micromanage them, heaven forbid.
Yeah.
It's really, they're very good at what they do. And I always says, I hire adults. I don't want to babysit. If I have to babysit, this is probably not the right fit for you. But their focus is the customer, and as part of our mission statement is that we're focused on partnering with the customer for their mission success. And that's very important in our space because everything we do is about the mission. And each customer has a slightly different one, but in the defense space, it's all about protecting us.
Right. I just think that's interesting. And I've read all the books too, Mike. And sometimes it's in one ear and out the other. But I do love that leadership style, which is more, how can I help you today? Instead of how can I do your job for you or stand over you and micromanage you. And I'm sure your employees feel it. That's excellent. So yeah, you listened to the books. Good job. You took something away from them. So as a service-disabled, veteran-owned business, first of all, thank you for your service. I see you a lot in the community. You're very involved. I wonder if you could talk about how community partnerships and how your chamber partnership, how you use that and how it serves your business, your employees, your family.
Sure. So I've definitely tried to step up as much as we're doing. And it's just really an extension of, our, family culture first is, we're about the community. We all live in this community. And so we, want to make it as good of a place to live as we can, because obviously we benefit, but so does everyone else. Yes, there's also benefits to the company, whether it's brand recognition. But one thing most people don't know, I've talked to a few people, but with the chamber is, the chamber, the people that I see every day there at these meetings, they're not our target audience. They're not the ones that we're going to get contracts or customers for. That might slowly change with DIBSEC, but it's really more about, a little bit of a brand awareness, but it's really more about, giving back. What can we do? The more I can, help and influence the way, or like right now we're sponsoring the advocacy committee.
Yeah, you're the champion sponsor of the business advocacy committee. Yeah.
So the more we can help influence how the regulations and what's going on in the community, all that forms, because the earlier you're involved, the better outcome you can achieve. So.
That's well said. And there are quite a few partners of the chamber, I think, who, you're right, they're not going to meet their next customer, but that's not why they get involved, and advocacy being a huge part of that. So thank you for your support of that. That's a huge tenet of the chamber. So somebody's watching right now and they're like, Mike does cool things. Mike's super chill. Mike has a family environment and remote work. I want to work for Mike. How do they find out? Are you hiring?
So right now we have 2 positions advertised.
Okay.
They're very short-term contract based. Unfortunately, they're also very specific.
Okay.
But all of our positions are always advertised on our job site. So techrev.com/jobs.
Perfect.
Or just Google TechRev and our site will come up. I think there's a big red banner at the top says now hiring. So hopefully it's very easy to find that information.
Okay.
We also maintain a presence on LinkedIn. primarily. We don't do as much social as other people do, given our target audience. So LinkedIn is our primary social.
LinkedIn's my favorite. Yeah.
But at the same time, really just let us know whether you see me at the next community event or, just send us an email, connect to us, however.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure you have a lot. I'm just curious, what's your favorite part of your job?
The favorite part of my job. So I mentioned earlier that I didn't know quite how many houses people had bought or renovated or children that they've had, but I know there's been quite a few. It's really the watching people grow and how we're able to assist them in their lives. Because good, bad, or indifferent, working is a part of life.
Right.
And so as much as possible, I'd like to, make it a fun part, but also a rewarding part. So watching people grow, and even if that means, eventually leaving us, I'm, more often than not, as long as, it's done well and on good terms, I'm more than happy to see them succeed and continue to move up. So
I think you should do that activity where you figure out how many houses, how many babies, all that stuff. That'd be interesting to hear over the 10 years, how you've impacted, and I'm sure you have. So this is the time in our program where I ask our guests to leave us a little pearl of wisdom, a little tenet, something you've heard that served you well, either in your professional or your personal life, maybe in the service, that you think would resonate with our watchers.
Okay, I don't think I have a single line.
Okay.
But one of the things I always try to do is, while you always want to focus on, bettering yourself, if the more you focus on others, I think the better it works. And, eventually, that will come around and you will, be able to, benefit some yourself as well. But really it's, help others out without expecting anything back. And, just
like that servant leadership, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier. Yeah. I love it. Thanks for coming out today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, you're welcome back anytime. Can you share that website one more time for everybody watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is techrev.com. That's TECHREV.com.
Perfect. And again, thank you for your service, Mike.
Thank
I
you,
really appreciate it. So you're going to see Mike. He's out and around. He's at chamber events. Have a beer with him. He's super cool. And he can make all the tech. Even I can understand it. So again, Mike, thanks so much for coming out. I've been your host, Mel Thomas. For more information on TechRev or any other of our chamber partners, please visit melbourneregionalchamber.com. A big thank you to the Hotel Melby for putting us up in this suite today, Anthony Demalia with Tightline Video Productions for making all of this possible, and as always, Isabella Serrano, Marketing and Communications Manager for the Melbourne Regional Chamber, for producing the 411 on the 321. We'll see you next time.